think we're just like force fed all these images of what a fit body should look like. And a lot of times I think it's a lot of unattainable bodies, actually, in my experience, in my opinion. And I think
Mm,
it's nice to have a break from that and to work from the inside out, so to speak. And that comes
mm,
from recognizing what you have and who you are
mm.
and applying it outwards. That really gives the best results and the most attainable and sustainable, really, I think. How about for you?
It's 5 here.
Ah,
So
got it.
yeah, already had a long day, but
Oh boy. Well, I
look,
hope not to make you work too hard.
no, this is not work. This is kind of anything to do with fitness, and chatting about fitness is a joy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. So yeah. So what's after this? What have you got? What have you got planned for the rest of the day?
Oh, for the rest of the day, I have a few meetings to take, but then I'm actually just going to spend some time with my husband because our schedules don't link up very often. And
Yes,
so,
I know how that is. I know how that is. Yeah, yeah.
so just gonna go for a hike and see where the day takes us.
Nice one. Nice one.
How about
Okay.
yourself?
Well, my wife's just come in with our little one, so after this it would be dinner, and
Mm.
then bedtime for her, and then we'll probably catch something on the TV. I don't know what we'll watch, but you know,
Very cool.
we'll need to unwind after entertaining our little 5-year-old. So
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, thanks so much for the t-shirt that you
no
sent.
worries, absolutely no worries. Thank you for repping it.
Yeah, I might have to purchase another one from you soon because I've actually outgrown it. Um,
Okay, you got the gains.
I suppose so. It's surprising this late in the game, but it seems to still be a thing. So I will have
Okay.
to be buying more t-shirts from you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, at the moment, so this is one of the things with I've been in a dilemma with fizzYcaL, kind of like what to do with it. Um, and there's merchandise is like the first thing you think of in terms of monetizing something, right? But it's not it feels like my heart's not in the whole merchandise thing. I'd rather just kind of do the media stuff.
Um,
So at the moment, there isn't any merch, but yeah, we'll see what comes in the next couple of months or so. But I'll let you know when the merch
please
is back
do.
up. Yeah,
Please
we'll
do.
do. Thank you, though. Thank you. Um, so are you cool to just kind of dive in?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right. So in that respect, would you be able to introduce yourself to the audience, just letting them know, your name, what you're known for, and where you're from.
So my name is Tasha Louie. I am a trainer slash coach. I work both in person and remotely. Largely on social media, I am known for very unconventional lifting. On top of that, I am known for exploring some very long range, end of range exercising, expression, so forth. So that's it.
Okay, so that will go straight to the first question that I'm kind of eager to kind of chat to you about, and that's if we were to have some sort of some sort of a thought experiment, right? So we've got a police state which is policed by people that love conventional lifts. They only
Okay.
love conventional lifts, right?
Okay.
The squat, the deadlift, the press, the row. You know, it all has to be done in classic form. Okay. How do you think that you would feel, and how do you think your thoughts about training would shift?
Ooh. Oh, that's a rough one. How severe are the penalties?
Oh, okay, all right. So you'd break the law. Okay, all right. Let's say the penalties are severe.
The penalties are very severe.
Yeah.
Okay. I would not feel great about it.
Hmm.
Um, but I would probably not categorize what I do as exercising then.
Okay.
Um, that given, I will see how much. I'm so sorry.
That's all
I
right.
thought I
That's all right.
put everything
No worry.
on Do Not Disturb. There we go. I would probably, the easiest way not to get in trouble is probably not touch a barbell. So that might be something that I would do.
Okay.
And say that I am exploring hobbies and I am dancing and exploring other fitness activities.
Okay. So basically, you wouldn't be able to be forced to stay in that kind of that classic kind of conventional thing. You'd have
I
to
don't believe so.
you'd have to fight your way
It's
out.
not that it's not to say that I dislike those movements. They're totally fine and they serve great purposes. And I use them from time to time whenever it suits me or my situation best. But I do know that outside of those situations, I do need a little bit of something extra to keep me going. If I was constricted to 3 movements for the rest of my life, I think that it would lose its appeal. It would lose. It wouldn't keep me interested in moving as much as the other things that I do.
So how much of your training is conventional?
I would say most of the time now, it does change from time to time, but right now it is about 75% conventional training. So your pull-ups, your push-ups, some bench pressing, some squatting, and some variation of an RDL. Like those are all in there.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite interesting because with social media, the impression that you'd get is that you're probably spending 99% of your time doing unconventional lifts, right? But you're saying it's 75 is your kind of conventional.
It is. I am fully aware that there are plenty of other people doing more conventional things that can seem. Uh, it's already all out there, and the point of me sharing the way that I do, I share most of my 25% on my reels and so forth, is because I like to share the joy of fitness, of how I see it. I like to provide an opportunity for people to see what might be on the outskirts. For some, and for me, at times it can be 75% to 100% of just playing around at times. Most of the time, it is a smaller percentage, but I do try to share more of what I find really interesting or really enjoy on my page because I don't think there's a lot of that out there for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's aspirational. So it's in seeing what are the possibilities. People will ask questions. People will inquire. People will try to figure out what the steps are or ask you what the steps are. So yeah, that's it's awesome that you are pushing the boundaries. I like to see that. That's for me. Training and creativity go hand in hand because I think I get quite easily bored. So I need to throw in something that's kind of like a bit wacky occasionally, just to kind of keep me consistent. Is that why you do the unconventional lifts? Is that one of the reasons?
Oh, definitely. I think that nearly 10 years of this, I mean, things do get stale at some point. And I do know that fitness or movement in general should be an everyday, maybe not every day, maybe every week, every other so day. It's a part of life. And with our work and so forth, we are mostly sedentary. And this is a common story, right? We're sitting most of the time. And I like to think of fitness as an opportunity to move in the ways that you would like. Back in the day when we were walking around a lot more, carrying our own things, opening our own doors, even things like that, a lot of our fitness was built in. Now we have to find ways to supplement it. And if we have to add more to our day that is like work, it's not going to get done very for a very long time consistently. So I think we do live in a really great time where we have the option to choose how we would like to move. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's kind of like having the freedom to just choose, just play. I see, there seems to be a rise online and on social media of people policing form and being quite critical of, if you're not doing the conventional things with the perfect form, it seems to be, like an increase in that. I don't know whether you find that. Do you get lots of critiques or lots of, people saying that you shouldn't be doing X movement in X way? Or
Oh, sure. Absolutely. All the time.
all the
Um,
time.
all the time. And
And how do you
think that's a normal reaction. I think that's a
how
normal.
do you handle that, or what do you feel about those kind of?
Oh, I understand. And I have been in that position before when I first got started because, there has to be a right way to do things, right? That's when we get started in something. We don't want to do something wrong. And so when we see somebody else doing it differently, we feel challenged, maybe a bit threatened that maybe what we're doing is wrong, or maybe we're taught to think that this is meant to be work, this is meant to be punishing, this is meant to not feel good, and somebody else seemingly enjoying what they're doing or having some fun may make us feel a certain way, and we may respond in a certain way. So I've that's what I recognize, and how I handle it really depends. Um, Most of the time, I ignore, and some of the time, I may explain, but I really do have to figure out if this person has the intention to really learn or to know. Yeah.
Mhm. And in terms of that, like so with the people that you interact with online, is that is that how you get most of your business? Is that as a personal trainer, as a coach? Is it through online inquiries, or is it that you advertise in a gym, or how is it that you get your clientele?
So most of my clientele online is through online. Mm, if they happen to be local in my area, then I have a few in-person clients. Um,
Okay.
all of my in-person, well, most of my in-person clients, which includes a sizable group of seniors, um,
Hmm.
were people that I used to work with in a big box gym.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So I was going to ask you about the seniors thing, because I heard on one of your podcasts that you train seniors, and I was like, but if they're looking at you online, they're probably going to feel a bit intimidated by your movement. So how is it that you're attracting? How is it that you're attracting seniors? But in saying that, with the kind of training that you do you find that there's something that translates to seniors, or to people that are sedentary in behavior? The fact that you do these unconventional lifts, is there a benefit that you feel that you have for them as a personal trainer?
I do. I think that with a lot of the unconventional things that I may have tweaked from something traditional, or that I've seen from a different physical culture, or a different practice or a different discipline that I just apply to gym tools, such as a barbell, or some machines or so forth. I think a lot of that has given me um, layers to figuring out how to uh, how to scale movement for different people, and that includes seniors, for sure. So that's a huge benefit. Training seniors, training children, training different age populations is not actually all that different. It's all a matter of figuring out where the individual is at and meeting them there. And how you figure that out is up to you, and it depends on your experience and your practice, I think. If you are only training Olympic weightlifting, for example, it's going to be difficult to teach that level of skill and technique to somebody who has no prior gym or movement experience. Um, just an example. So I pick and put together different things from different areas of fitness. And yeah, it works really well for seniors, children, so forth. But I think my work at the prior big box gym, which was mostly a senior population, has prepared me really well in my personality, in my demeanor, in my openness to work really well with the population.
So I guess it's like, because you're constantly learning, kind of like you know, you kind of know what it feels like on almost every rung of the ladder, you know, whether you're from, you know, from the beginning or you're, you know, from the advanced, and you can kind of almost like translate to the beginner, to the senior, to the person who's sedentary, or to the child, which is yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that, but yeah,
I like to think of it that way
cool.
as well.
That's pretty cool.
Make your own half
Yeah,
rungs if you want, quarter rungs.
yes, nice. And in saying that, like, what is your approach to? Do you have a an approach to breaking down moves, or do different moves kind of dictate kind of completely different approaches?
Ah, that's a good question. Could you rephrase the question?
Okay, it's so let's say let's pick a move that you've kind of recently unlocked, as it were. What was the process that you went through to kind of, you know, get to that move? Was it kind of breaking it down into kind of like little small pieces and just, you know, doing the steps that way? Was it through visualization? Was it through doing the move, getting frustrated, coming back to the move later on? You know, what tends to be your approach to kind of, you know, unlocking a move?
So the Mansfield lift is where you pick up a barbell in the crooks of your elbows from the floor with absolutely locked out knees. And it begins in a forward fold. So it requires a lot of hamstring and a lot of flexibility to get down into the position. And you deadlift the barbell with locked out knees the entire time, all the way up to your chest to full lockout. And depending on your what you're aiming for, you can either let go of the barbell at the top, or you can bring it back down and do it for reps. So that's something I've been working on for a little bit. And the traditional way to do it, even though it is an odd lift, is to do it from the floor with your feet no wider than 12 inches. And I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in centimeters.
No, inches is perfect. Yeah, no inches. Yeah.
And you pick it up from the floor with your standard height or diameter plates.
Okay.
And so after some time of doing that, I figured I want to see how much further I can push my hamstring forward fold flexibility. So I started doing it on a deficit, so standing on a plate or standing on a stool to see how far I can stretch it, and at whatever weight I can handle, little bit at a time, and seeing what happens there.
So it's just so effectively it's like incremental stages.
Very much so,
Okay.
which is why it can take
Do you ever is why what?
It's why something
What?
takes several months.
Okay. Do you ever kind of make the mistake of jumping straight in and trying a movement?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, yeah, yeah. And what is it that you try it and in testing it out, you realize, no, you have to go back a few steps?
Um, yes, usually. And I've learned over time that it's always better to start safer than not,
Mhm.
with less
Okay.
weight or less range, less um just less in general, and to be patient. The patience, I think this is the biggest test in my patience, not test. Let's say it's been the best way to build my patience over time actually, is
Okay.
is where it's at.
And how do you measure or assess the risk and reward of doing a movement? And are there any movements that you kind of steer clear of?
I think that there aren't any movements that I would steer clear of. If anything, I would recognize if it's beyond my capacity, um, based off of what I currently know about my body over the last 10 years or so of doing what I do. Um, and if I think it's possible, I will assess and test a little bit at a time. That said, for example, a backflip is something I don't think I have the capacity for. I don't have anything in my arsenal that's related to it at all. And um, it's not something that I had a fervent interest in as a child. So it's not something that I can visualize myself doing. So I will take very, 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 very tiny baby steps towards that if I were to try it, for
Okay.
example.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. And this kind of the creativity that you employ in your training, is it reflected in any other part of your life? Are you a creative person? Do you paint? Do you dance? You know do you draw anything like that?
I think that first off, I think everybody is creative
Hmm.
because we all, if we're going to confine this to movement, first is to say that we all have the capacity to be creative because we all have such different bodies.
Yes.
And with such different bodies, we all have our own constraints and we have our own strengths and weaknesses. So trying to puzzle piece a way to do something that's most effective for ourselves or most efficiently for ourselves will require some creativity at some point.
Mhm.
Um, but to your other question, yes, I'd like to color outside of the lines as a child, for example. I didn't like to stick to a lot of things that were presented to me, and I had to find alternatives because it seemed more interesting.
Mm.
My background is actually in filmmaking. That's what I got
Okay.
my degree in.
Okay.
So yes, I would say that I tended to be a bit more on the creative side.
Yeah. No. Similar. Yeah. For me, I can't. I reckon I could do a lift, which is part of a program, the same lift for, maybe a couple of months, maybe 2 or 3 months. And then after that, I'd need to vary it. I'd need to do something different. Um, and I think that it's that want or that need to do something different and realizing that it's, necessary for training that's kept me consistent. A lot of my friends have kind of like, they used to be pretty fit when they were young. And then, once you reach your 40s, there's the responsibilities that come. But yeah, I think you probably even need more creativity, as you get older. But yeah, I don't know. Is that is that how you think?
I I I do believe that. And it's interesting because when you're younger, you have less responsibilities and more time to really explore that creativity. Um, but I do agree that as you get older, that it's more necessary than when you were younger. Um, the challenge is to find the time to be able to really dive into that creative streak that you may be having.
And so you did a film degree. What was that? What you were doing before you got into fitness? Before you became a PT?
Yeah, no, really, in a nutshell, film degree, did a lot of side projects here and there. I was in LA for a little bit. It was gig after gig after gig, but then I was a bit homesick, so I came back to Northern California. LA's in Southern California, so I came back home, did another degree, and tried to find local projects. Excuse me. And after a time, I realized that in that industry, it's not really what you know, it's really who you know. And being a introvert, that was challenging to have a good source, a good steady source of income. And it was project by project. It wasn't like a salary.
Mhm.
So during that time, I figured I would supplement my income and learn how to be a bit more extroverted, the best I could as a.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. This is the voice of Iffy from within the edit. Please can you help us appease the algorithm gods and like or comment below. Now back to the conversation with Tasha.
Learn how to be a bit more extroverted, the best I could as a bartender. So
Okay.
I worked in bartending and I worked in filmmaking for a good amount of time, and it worked really well. However, with the lifestyle of a bartender, it wasn't very conducive to the most healthy lifestyle, let's just say, for me. And that was something that I had to change to get healthier. And that was spent in the gym after hours after work instead of hanging out with my coworkers after a shift. And once there was a sizable change in difference in my health and my appearance, a lot of people said that this is probably more of your calling than anything because it's a night and day difference.
Mm.
And I took that to heart, and that's where it began.
And what would you say you've pulled from your past career that's helped you as a PT, that maybe people that say started as a PT straight from college or straight from university?
I think it's the exposure to so many different types of people and personalities, and recognizing how different people respond differently to how you communicate. I think that has been the biggest skill that I learned as a bartender and as a filmmaker in different contexts. But I think that was the biggest one, and to do it at a very rapid, high speed pace. Um, that prepared me really well when I worked at a big box gym because there's all these people coming
Okay.
in, all different types of personalities. The goals were roughly the same, but there were different ways of meeting people where they were at, and that was the biggest one for sure.
Okay. Okay. Grand. And in terms of kind of people and perspectives, there was something that I heard you say in one podcast interview where you were talking about pain, and you were talking about pain in kind of cultural sense, and I was like, oh wow, like I've never thought of that. Could you speak to that kind of realization that pain in a way is like a construct, if you know what I mean?
I'm still trying to figure it out. But the first one was when I was working at the big box gym where I would have, different people from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different and so forth. And something that I noticed is that in some Asian populations, the discernment between pain and soreness was a whole new thing. And I'll take my own personal example that I'll share is when I was training my parents. And when I first started training my parents, I would ask, does it hurt? Does it feel safe? Common questions. And they would say yes a lot of the time. And I would be really concerned. I'm like, oh no, that's not good for them. Oh, how do I adjust it so it doesn't hurt? And I was speaking in Cantonese to them when we were doing it. So I was making sure that as much as I could understand. And it turns out, culturally speaking, the words there wasn't really a word for pain in the way that, or soreness in the way that we know it in the fitness world or in other worlds, so to speak. Soreness and pain were the same word that they used. So that was a big thing for me to learn. And it seemed to translate to other people as well. And I had to ask around a bit, and younger generations have come up with a term that people in my parents' generation or older were completely unaware of, and it was adding another word to pain. So soreness still includes the word pain in it, in Cantonese, for example, or in Mandarin. And I had to learn that new vocabulary and understand that and explain it to the older generations the best I could. It was very interesting to me. So, but outside of that, I would say, culturally speaking, in older populations or in populations that aren't used to moving as often, do also have some issue recognizing the difference between soreness and pain in a damaging way. So sometimes when people push themselves really hard for the first time in the gym and they feel that incredible burn, they think they're hurting themselves and they'll just back off. And it's understanding where they're coming from and building a relationship where they have some level of trust where you can calmly explain it's okay. It means you're doing it correctly to some extent, and it's going to be a part of life. And it's something that's going to prepare you really well for situations where you actually might hurt yourself, actually, and that you can recognize the differences and take comfort in the healing process.
The reason why I was so interested in it is because so my family's from a small farming village in Nigeria, and there are people who I've seen do some incredibly really intense movements, right? And in the same context, if you were to if you change the context and put it in an exercise form and you want them to do something that's, for fitness reasons, it's almost like their pain level goes down. You saw them being able to do that, that crazy physical feat. But then their pain level goes down when it's kind of translated to exercise, because exercise, or in the way that I kind of interpreted it, is that there's no immediate reward to doing the exercise, whereas there's an immediate reward to doing the physical manual thing. So yeah, that's why I was just so interested in it. That's fascinating. Just like, things that we take for granted, pain. Like, why is pain not almost like a universally understood thing? But depending on the person's perspective, they all have, a different degree to it, which is interesting.
Absolutely.
And talking of pain, like, how do you handle kind of like healing and injury? Like, as you've got older, like how do you handle your own healing?
By going through a lot of injuries. Not purposely, obviously. I know that we live in a world right now where we're very, very we're very much in this preventative phase of fitness right now. It's like how to bulletproof this, how to, be indestructible, so forth, and these things. But that's all fine and grand. But real life situations and life itself does present accidents that you can't foresee. And when that does happen, when you do get injured in or outside of the gym, I think it is important to build some experience in knowing how to heal, or recognizing how well the body can take care of itself if you let it. And I've been through, so in the beginning, when I got really into fitness and started shifting over to my online business, I tore my ACL, which was pretty traumatic for me at the time. It's the first time I broke anything that needed a hospital visit and surgery. And it's interesting because things that people were telling me by people that were treating me were, you'll probably never move the same way that you did before. You probably won't be able to do this before. You probably won't be able to do this, period. All of these things. I'm sure that it always comes from a good place to make sure that I don't further harm myself. But those seeds of doubt can really turn into something quite harmful on its own. So there's that internal battle. And through that injury, I actually learned to do a lot of things outside of the traditional movements that were expected of me. It's true. I still don't move the way that I used to, but I think that I actually have a bigger movement vocabulary because of it.
Okay.
And it was born out of a need to keep moving because blood flow to an injury site helps it heal better, and more blood flow comes from movement. So it was finding ways that didn't hurt, and to be very, very patient, and to make sure I was still managing good sleep and nutrition and so forth. And once I was fully recovered or healed, then I could go back to what I was doing before, but I still had to manage every little bit of change and pain that arose. I can deep squat again. That was something that I was told I would never be able to do. I can do a lot of things that I never did before. And so that was pretty cool. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. I mean, it prepared me really well for other things that came up. I had a spinal fracture last year, end of 2022. And I would say that my experience with my ACL and my shoulder and my ankle, to a certain extent, like, they all prepared me very well for my spinal injury when I was recovering. So, yeah.
It's a difficult one, right? Because as you get older, there's, potentially a want or a need or a societal pressure to take things easy. But then there's also the school of thought that if you take things easy, you'll become weaker and more fragile. And, so I'm not a personal trainer, but I can see the potential for kind of fear from, say, like a new personal trainer who's dealing with somebody that's very kind of fragile, or who's a senior. Is there any kind of tips that you'd give to a personal trainer dealing with how to approach somebody who is really sedentary, like really old, really, really fragile, for example?
I would say to first make sure that you're paying attention and asking questions, and getting a sense of where that person is feeling about themselves before you put on your 30 seconds of a first impression on them. Because I've been wrong many times, and that hasn't fostered a lot of trust. And that is never a good place to start. I have two 80-year-olds, two 80-year-old women who were told different things, and they believed different things about themselves that I couldn't have known without asking and figuring out over a couple of months. And now they're doing these incredible things, like one learned how to do push-ups for the first time in a long time. She said that she broke her wrist when she was 30, and her doctor told her that she would never be able to bend her wrist in a certain way, let alone put weight on it. And she loved doing push-ups in her 30s. And I said, well, would you be open to trying baby mini versions of it? And she said yes. And it took us about maybe 2 years when she was 78. And now she's doing sets of 5 push-ups on the floor, chest to floor, all the way down and coming back up. And the joy that comes from that, I can't describe that to you. I have another one who is 80 as well, and she has a history of lower back pain. And she said, I can't do certain things with it. I said, okay. Would you be open to trying things without weight? She said yes. And so we worked towards just touching her toes, which is something that she had been able to do as a child as a gymnast. But that was a long time ago, she said. I said, okay, well, we'll see what we can get. And I think about 9 months later, not only did we successfully touch the floor without any issues, we're now doing Jefferson curls, traditional ones,
Okay.
at half her body weight.
Good Lord. Oh, man.
And the confidence that came from that over 9 months, we also worked our way up to a body weight deadlift with no prior experience whatsoever. No straps, no chalk, no waistband or the belt. Yeah. So I think a lot of times it's really important just to get to know your client first. Ask them questions about how they perceive themselves and go from there.
See, it makes me think of these people that police form quite heavily online. I've seen, a lot of talk of, I understand hypermobility can be an issue, but it's almost like there's an attack on any type of form of flexibility. Or the other one that I've seen most recently is not going past 90 on a squat. I thought that was something from the 80s or 90s, but now it's come back and people are saying, no, you shouldn't go past, 90 degrees in a squat. But as somebody that's kind of observed the fitness industry, like I've seen people who have been doing deep squats for, several years or decades even, and they're good. There's a guy actually that I documented. I did a mini documentary called Mastering Youth, and this guy is in his 70s, and he has crazy, crazy squats. The dude's got an 8-pack, everything. And I'm like, like, where does this whole policing form come when you see, people like them and, hear stories of, people in their 80s that are kind of reversing time and doing stuff that they were doing in their 30s. So, yeah, I can sometimes see the concern, but sometimes I think I don't know whether it's fear mongering, or a way of getting clients or a way of producing content. I don't know.
I think there's already enough fear in the world as it is, and fear surrounding our own bodies. And I think that I think there's enough of it. And I think that we don't have to remove fear altogether, but I think that it's important to experience things before deciding that it's bad for you. Obviously with some reason and rationale to it. But yeah, I think the moment that you start policing somebody before you even get to know them, before they even get to know you, there's more restrictions that you've just created. There's a mistrust there. There's a doubt there. There's a drop in confidence. And people just don't want to show up even. Like, what's the point? It's too much to think about. And I might be safer just sitting around all day instead. So it can have that negative effect instead. I think trust is more important than authority. Let's say that.
I like that. Yeah, that makes sense. With regard to recovery and healing, like how much do you think your approach to nutrition, and what is your approach to nutrition? How much do you think your approach to nutrition has helped you with healing, recovery, building strength?
I'm sorry to say that it's going to be very boring. It's going to be
It's okay. It's okay. Welcome, boring. It doesn't always have to be creative.
I've experimented a lot. I have followed a lot of trends. And I will have to say that the thing that has worked best was what I grew up with, which was 3 square meals a day, maybe some snacks in between, getting the major food groups in, which would be your protein, your carbs, and your fats, having some sort of balance that makes you feel very good, and energized rather than feeling depleted or slow. And to monitor that the best you can, staying hydrated and recognizing certain foods or food groups that don't treat you very well. I don't process alcohol very well. I figured that out after 6 years of heavy drinking,
Mhm. Mhm.
for example.
So, there's a long experiment.
Yes. um, but I would just make sure that I am eating enough to feel good about myself.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, um, I've heard, I can't remember the guy's name now, but was a doctor in the field of nutrition, but he was talking about how there are so many different ways to nourish the body other than eating. Um, Obviously, there's fitness, exercise, sunlight, all of these various things. But I imagine that the nutrition question, you probably get that asked quite a lot. Like, how many calories are you having a day? What's your portion control and all of that? Do you weigh your food? Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with weighing your food or starting off with certain guidelines. That's actually how I figured out what was good for me, so to
Good
speak.
for you.
There was a bodybuilder period of my life where I was like,
Hmm.
I had to have X amount of calories, X percent was protein, and so forth, and uh, how much I needed, and how to eyeball that, and also and so forth. Um, it was helpful in figuring out what worked and what didn't work. And I don't weigh my food anymore. It's been a very long time since I've done that, but I've recognized that 3 eggs roughly translates to 18 to 20 grams of protein.
Hmm.
If I have a piece of meat, if it's about the size of my palm and about the thickness of my palm, it's somewhere around 20 to 30 grams of protein.
Hmm.
And I just figure out if I'm getting enough based on my rough calculations and if I'm feeling nourished. Um, and that's a skill that takes a bit of time to figure out. I know when I'm craving carbs because I haven't had enough. Um, or I know that my performance is suffering or that I'm sore for longer than usual because I haven't had enough protein. Um, Things like that, is what I would say.
And do you give clients information about nutrition, or do you just stick to fitness with your clients?
I stick to rough guidelines and try to troubleshoot it the best I can with them, but I don't give them prescriptions on diet or
Okay.
nutrition. Um,
Okay.
that's that's not um, that's not. Let's just say it's not where I'm most interested in helping people.
Okay. Okay. Well, Tasha, this has been awesome. Got actually one more question. If you
Sure.
weren't doing personal training,
Oh,
what do you see yourself? What would you see yourself doing? Or what could you see yourself doing?
I always thought that I would still make a film at some point in my life. That may still very well be true, but I don't think that it would be a career path. Very recently, I daydreamed a lot about. I haven't actually shared this. So here we
It's an
go.
exclusive. Yeah, go.
I would like to actually own and run an animal sanctuary of sorts. Um, so a big plot of land, farm, something along those lines to take in animals that don't have a place to go, and just to look after them and care for them the best that I can. And be able to create opportunities for adoption. And that would keep me plenty busy, physically speaking, I think. And I wouldn't really have to think much about it.
Like I've been having, I've been been getting into grounding and being out in nature. I was like thinking to myself, like, about retreats, you know, kind of fitness retreats that are more kind of like outdoorsy. And as you were just saying that, then I was like, oh, you can mix a farm with a gym, you know, like, you know, if you do it, you know, make sure you give me my commission, all right?
Absolutely.
Tasha, thank you so much. Thank you. This has been great. And the way I'm going to put it all together is like kind of like little snippets every now and again. I'm going to kind of release these little snippets, and then I'm going to pull, you know, the gems of it. And I think I mentioned it in the message. Create kind of like an almost like you know, This American Life, that kind of style podcast, because, you know, I'm thinking that we have there's a lot of visuals in the fitness industry, but there isn't enough audio, you know. And I think sometimes when people are maybe working out or driving or doing something where they don't need to look at something, hearing it is probably a better way. And for me anyway, hearing it sometimes can be more impactful than, you know, actually kind of staring at my screen. So yeah, I'm going to try and create a documentary style audio out of this, and yes, like pull different voices and talk about creativity and boredom and all of that in fitness.
I think that's lovely.
And see if it inspires people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's lovely also because I think that I think we're just like force fed all these images of what a fit body should look like. And a lot of times I think it's a lot of unattainable bodies, actually, in my experience and in my opinion. And I think it's nice to have a break from that and to work from the inside out, so to speak. And that comes from recognizing what you have and who you are and applying it outwards. That really gives the best results and the most attainable and sustainable, really, I think. So I really like that idea. That's really cool.
Well, you've given me more words to explain what I'm doing, so thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really nice to just talk and get to know people. I'm excited to see more work from you. Works of creativity.
Yes, and yeah, looking forward to seeing more. What's the next move that you're trying to clock? Is there one that you're working on at the moment? Or
I don't actually. Right now, I'm actually taking a break. Right now it's about almost 95-100% traditional stuff.
Okay.
I am putting together a barbell flow course right now. So any creativity that I have is going into that right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to be keeping an eye on you on your page, and yeah, as I said, thanks again, Tash.
Of course.
Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the hike.
Thank you. Enjoy your family time.
All right. Peace.
Sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.